Okay, hi everyone, welcome back, and in this update we are going to check out Quant's price chart and see what is going on specifically in the short term. But before we get into all that, at first we are going to talk about this very important article coming from BSC News and talk about some very important points that they mentioned in here. Now, BSC News isn't just actually some random blog, no. They are indeed one of the more recognized names in the crypto media space. And for example, if you go on their Twitter page, as you can see, they have over 1.3 million followers. So it's safe to say this is a rather big crypto news outlet. So when they are talking about QNT, it's not going to be just noise. No, in my view, this is actually a signal, and sure, it's a quiet one maybe, but it does tell us that attention is kind of starting to shift, and slowly, steadily, people are beginning to notice what Quant has been doing behind the scenes. And honestly, I think it's about time. You see, in this article, they don't really say Quant is great and all that great stuff. And for example, we are going to pump tomorrow. No, they went in this article way deeper, and they tried to show how Quant has been playing the long game in here by building credibility, not just hype. They have been teaming up with serious players, including Oracle, Hyperledger, central banks, and fintech firms, you name it all. And these are not the kind of names that jump on every single shiny token. No, these are institutions that care about infrastructure, compliance, and also long-term utility. And at the heart of it all, you know it, it's Overledger. And for those of you who are new viewers, you need to think of Overledger like basically a blockchain operating system. It's not a chain itself, no, it's the layer that lets different blockchains talk to each other perfectly, no problem at all. And more importantly, Overledger lets legacy systems, like for example the ones that banks and governments are already using, connect to blockchain technology without ripping every single thing out and starting from scratch. And that, in my view, is a huge deal, because here's the thing, most enterprises do not really want to rebuild their entire tech stack just to go crypto. I think this is actually kind of sort of a stupid idea. They want something that just simply plugs in, works with what they already have, and doesn't really require, like for example, a team of Solidity developers to maintain it. No, they want something very simple, and Quant, in my view, delivers all that good stuff. Now, here's a very important question. Why do articles like this actually matter quite a bit? Because they are trying to flip the usual crypto narrative. And instead of talking about price swings and moonshots, they are trying to mainly focus on enterprise adoption. Fortune 500 companies, central banks, regulators, they care about solving problems, not chasing charts. And Quant is solving a big problem, which is what, if you are a regular viewer, you probably know it because we are talking about this in every single update. It is called interoperability, and that is the real need, because let's be honest, banks and tech giants run on different systems, different chains, different roles. If they cannot talk to each other, blockchain is going to stay stuck in silos. And Quant, well, it actually breaks those silos by a very simple, good old-fashioned plug-and-play mechanism for cross-chain communication. And when institutions like, for example, the ECB, Bank of England, and also BIS start working with QNT, it's not just a partnership. No, it's actually a vetting process. You see, these organizations do not mess around. They test for security, compliance, and also scalability. And if Quant is in the room, that's actually because it already passed all the tests. Now, let's break down a few key takeaways from this very important article. Number one, when it comes to Overledger, it's very important to understand that it's actually a middleware, meaning it sits between systems and chains, making them interoperable, and it is built for speed and just simple plug and play. Point number two, at the moment, Oracle is using QNT under the hood, and that opens up blockchain access to over 400,000 enterprise clients. Plus, partnerships with Hyperledger and also AU Cloud lets companies run hybrid environments. For example, public and private chains in this case are able to work together absolutely seamlessly. Point number three, you see, Quant is helping the ECB and also Bank of England test programmable CBDCs. And that means things like, for example, automated refunds, maybe real-time notification, and built-in compliance. BIS is also in the mix in here, using QNT for regulated asset transfers across jurisdictions. And finally, point number 4, when it comes to tokenomics, it's very important to understand that the QNT is not going to be just a simple token. No, it's actually the license key, meaning enterprises are going to stake it, lock it up, and use it to have access to Overledger. And with fixed supply and growing demand, well, that actually creates a solid foundation for long-term value, not hype, not speculation, just pure good old utility. Now, let's talk about some hidden messages in this article, because there is actually, in my view at least, more here than just some simple partnership and take buzz. First off, you see, Quant is not trying to be flashy. It's not chasing headlines or retail hype. No, it is positioning itself as invisible infrastructure. And what does that mean in case that you are a new viewer? It means big companies can simply plug into Overledger without changing their branding, their front end, or their customer experience. The tech just works in the background, very quiet, very stable, and at the same time, extremely powerful. And that, my friends, is exactly how the internet actually escaped. Protocols like TCP/IP didn't really need a logo. They just needed to work, and Quant is playing the exact same game, at least so far. Now, let's talk about compliance. You see, this is where most crypto projects absolutely stumble. But Quant, okay, that is a bit of a different story, and they are constantly trying to hedge themselves against regulation. With tools like, for example, PayScript and built-in privacy controls, they are designing systems that is able to meet legal standards before even regulators knock. And that, my friends, is not just smart, it is also very much necessary if you want to work with big banks and governments. And here's the kicker. You see, every single time that QNT is signing a new partner, it's not just expanding their network. It also means that they are locking up QNT tokens. And whether it's, for example, going to be for staking, licensing, or even gateway access, those tokens are getting pulled out of circulation. And that is a value capture in action for you. And it's very important to know that the whole mindset of QNT in here is enterprise first. You see, Quant knows that big organizations do not want risk. They want plug and play, minimal code, and no infrastructure overhaul. And that is what Overledger offers. It's not trying to be the next flashy DeFi application. No, it is trying to be the simple backbone of digital finance. So here's a question. What does this mean for the market? Well, if you are an investor, I think it's right now time to zoom out. Let's forget about daily candles for a minute and look at adoption curves. And I absolutely understand. Real utility takes quite a bit of time, but when it lands, it is going to stick. Watching pilot programs, CBDC rollouts, and events like, for example, Cybos that we are going to have in the coming days will give you a better signal than any RSI or MACD. Again, if you are a mid to long-term investor. And here is the bullish angle here. As interoperability becomes a compliance checkbox, Overledger could, in my view at least, become the default standard. And that means what? Yep, you guessed it right. QNT token is going to be a license to operate in the future of finance. And also, finally, with a fixed supply and enterprise demand, well, I think QNT might be one of the very rare few tokens with a built-in, not a speculative revenue model. And these, my friends, are the exact reasons for why am I so optimistic in Quant. Let's be honest, I think as we go forward in the crypto market and as projects get created more and more, it's very important to pay attention to the ones that are having solid fundamentals. And Quant, I think, definitely checks that box. Also, it's very important to pay attention to what is going on in terms of midterm structures and technical analysis. And I think also in that area, we are looking magnificent and bullish. But what is going on in like very short term? Now let's go on the live chart and see what is happening at the moment. Okay, here we are. And if you remember the last time that we talked about QNT, we were around these areas, and the idea was that this can be, according to at least one scenario, an A, B, C, D, E in form of a triangle structure, which is actually quite a common pattern into our wave 4, meaning what? Probably in the short term in QNT, we should expect another move on the downside into wave 5 in form of a 5 wave, maybe an impulsive structure. So what happened? As you can see, we did continue our move down a little bit, but followed by that, we got a quick bounce back. Now, at the moment, I'm really watching the current price action and see what is going to happen next. If we get another move down and in it, we take this low, okay, that can be, I'm not going to say sort of an optimistic sign, but it can be a sign suggesting we are indeed on the right track to completing this last leg move down into our wave 5, which on a higher degree, it's going to be overall the C leg of this whole, hopefully an A, B, C running flat, meaning what's next? A fantastic and strong move up, because on a higher degree, guess what? In my view, this is 1, this is 2, and we're gonna have a good bull run into wave 3 and 4 and 5. And it is actually quite possible, in my view, that in this phase, we can actually set an all-time high and take the highest high, which I think it's somewhere around $450. So as you can see, overall, we are bullish, but in the short term, I want to see some more downward price action. Now, on the other hand, it seems like that so far, again, this is just for now, this is kind of a slow move down when you compare it to this move on the upside. So what is it that I'm trying to say? I'm trying to tell you, maybe this is going to be like an ABC zigzag, and then we are going to have a move down. And if this is the case, in the coming phase up in QNT, we can absolutely take this low, but we should not, under any kind of circumstances, take this important high right in here. And I think I called this one a low, sorry, I meant a high. But again, overall, let's not get off topic. We should not, one way or the other, take this important high. Now, question, if we are having on a higher degree, maybe like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then can we argue this is going to be starting from here, a 1, I'm going to say probably like an ABC running flat into wave 2, another move down into wave 3, WXY into 4, another move on the downside into wave 5. Now, here's a very important point. Under any kind of circumstances, wave 3 should not be the smallest wave in any kind of 5 wave, okay? It's very, very important to understand that. And having said that, maybe, yes, we should actually measure the length of our wave 3 from this point to about here and compare it to our wave 5, because I think we can all clearly see that wave 3 is smaller than our supposedly wave 1. But the real question is it also smaller than our wave 5? The answer is they are actually quite equal. So let's go on another chart that has better looking candlesticks, maybe on this one from crypto.com. There we go. Now let's measure our supposedly wave 3 and compare it to wave 5. Okay, is it smaller than our wave 5? The answer actually is by a very, very small margin, as you can see right in here. Yes, except that this isn't actually the case. Why is that? This is the main point that I'm trying to make, and it's actually an educational point. It doesn't really matter whether you are on QNT or maybe any other chart for that matter. You see, if you want to measure waves, how many times did we say you need to, first things first, put your chart on regular scale, okay? There is simply no measuring waves on logarithmic, and when you do that and measure the length of your wave from here to at this point and compare it to 5, as you can see, okay, this time if I just zoom in, there we go, it seems like that by like a very, very small margin, wave 3 is bigger than wave 5, meaning what? This is absolutely allowed to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave on the downside, which on a higher degree, excuse me, let's just zoom out a little bit, can be into a 1, correction for 2, and what's next? Maybe a decent move down into wave 3 and 4 and 5. Is this going to be such a strong move on the downside? At the moment, I really cannot tell you anything for sure. I'm actually waiting to see what is going to happen in this case. If we get a bounce in order to take this high and then we get a move down, that might actually open the doors to the next move not be necessarily that deep. But here is what I have to say. Overall, I think you can actually make it much, much easier by just checking indicators and what is going on specifically in H4 time frame in MACD, because as you can see, this is a clear-cut bullish divergence we are having basically on the live chart a series of lower lows, but in MACD we are having a series of higher lows, which is a good sign, suggesting in the current phase down in QNT, bears are kind of running out of power, and maybe after having another move down, we are going to get a very strong bounce back, which overall, this is my primary case, do not get me wrong. But if we get a move down in quant, and in that move, we manage to get a break of the divergence line, okay, that's actually going to be a very strong bearish sign, suggesting our move down is going to accelerate, and it is going to be that deep move down that we talked about earlier in the video. Okay, so for now, let's have a quick conclusion. I do think in the short term we are probably going to see another move down, but maybe before that we are going to do something like this, have another move in order to maybe complete the subphase for an ABC zigzag, and then a move down. And in this phase, your eyes should be on that important divergence line, okay? Not necessarily this low, because I think we might take it and it's not really going to matter a whole lot. But when it comes to that divergence line, that's a way different story. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in Quant's price chart. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time. Goodbye.